Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Running the Bases podcast. I'm your host, Michael Garaffa, alongside Dominic Stearn, special guest today, and Ryan Blank, as we are going to discuss breaking news this morning as Charlie Morton, the World Series runner-up Charlie Morton, signing with the Atlanta Braves to join their elite starting rotation as he gets ready to be a part of that National League East defending champion from the last 2 years. Now, this is a big deal as Charlie Morton signing a 1-year, $15 million contract as a 37-year-old coming off of a stellar season with the Rays. Made it to the World Series, was honestly one of the biggest reasons why they made it there. And this is a big deal. I'll open up the floor. We'll start with Dom because Dom's the guest today, and we'll go with Dom and then Ryan. I want to hear your guys' initial reactions to this.
First off, thank you for having me on today.
You're welcome. It's the beginning of season 3. We're having new people on.
Appreciate it. I was honestly shocked. Being over here on the West Coast, I wake up to this signing. I was kind of surprised that he got $15 million. Now, it's a 1-year deal, so he's going to get more money than he would if he signed a longer deal. Now, of course, this is what Charlie Morton wanted. He wanted to play 1 more year because he was bummed that the 2020 season was cut short and that there were no fans. He wanted that one last ride, and he wanted to pitch on the East Coast. So the Braves were definitely one of the suitors for Charlie Morton, and that's one of the places where he ended up going. I think this is a good signing for the Braves. It gives them pitching depth because their rotation was what was shaky for them in the 2020 season. Now, come postseason time, it was actually pretty solid, but they didn't really have that fourth guy with Mike Soroka being injured. And I know Ryan is a huge fan of Mike Soroka. Didn't really pitch at all this year. It's really a huge what if. What if Mike Soroka was healthy? Where does this Braves team go? And there's still a lot of questions surrounding Kyle Wright and Bryce Wilson. So I think that bringing in Charlie Morton is just an extra security blanket for 1 year. The Braves, they're in it to win it. They know their championship time is right now, and they're trying to do everything they can to execute their championship window.
Yeah, this is a great signing. I'm big on Mike Soroka and how he's going to have such a big impact once he comes back, but you don't know how he's going to be because an Achilles injury takes a while. It takes a year. So he's out for some of the season already. So getting a guy like Charlie Morton is going to be big to make up for that loss. But once Mike Soroka returns, that's going to be incredible. That's going to be dynamic and dominant. And looking at their rotation, they got Soroka, they've got Max Fried, they've got Ian Anderson, they've got Kyle Wright, and they just signed Drew Smyly, who's coming off of a career year. So this is a very talented rotation and a very good rotation that's going to really make up for a potential loss of a top bat Marcell Ozuna, because it doesn't look like we're going to have that universal DH next year. So that means Ozuna's probably going to leave the Braves, and the Braves won't want to bring him back then. So they're trying to beef up their rotation to maybe counteract a potential, not slump, but decrease in production and offense with a potential loss of Ozuna. But Charlie Morton, what can you say about him? He's been great. 15 mil, that's more than I would have expected to see him get. But, Dom, you said it perfectly. With him going there, it's a 1-year deal. So that's why he got more. So you have a great point there. Had a higher ERA than he did the past couple seasons. One of the higher ones in his career this past year at 4.74. But he's still a very good pitcher. He was a big piece of that rotation for the Rays. He's going to be a big piece for the Braves for this year. And this is a team that originally drafted him in 2002. So this is a reunion for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to note that this is the second straight signing in Major League Baseball to the Braves. They have signed Drew Smyly and now Charlie Morton to bolster that bullpen. They've already put $26 million out there this season alone for their starting staff, and that's a lot of money. That's going to – I mean, I don't know how far they are away from that luxury tax, not nearly as much as many other teams, but I'm sure they're getting a little bit closer, and that might hurt their ability to get other starters or for their lineup. But, I mean, this is a move for the Braves that's going to put a lot of pressure on the other NL East teams. And the Braves right now, they're not only getting the first really big player in the offseason, but this might break the ice. We've seen a lot of people that, I mean, we always normally see that in the offseason where, oh, okay, this guy broke the ice. Now we can see more signings start to come on. And, you know, the thing that I see automatically is the Mets were looking at Charlie Morton as a backup in case you don't get Trevor Bauer. Now that makes the Mets have even more pressure on them to get Trevor Bauer because you lost your biggest backup. And it's going to change the dynamic. Yes, Ryan?
I don't know about that, really, because with Sonny Gray now on the market, you could see the Mets try to look at him, especially with how the Mets were looking to get him when the A's originally looked to trade him before he went to the Yankees. The Mets were in on him, so they could look to add Sonny Gray as a backup there. But the one thing that you have to remember about Charlie Morton is that this is a big game pitcher. He won Game 7 of the ALCS this year. He pitched in Game 7 of the Astros 2018 World Series.
No, it's 2017.
Sorry, I'm mixing up my dates. 2017 when they won it. So he's a big game pitcher. He's a great pitcher, and he's someone that your rotation can rely on. Since the start of 2017 season, he's tied for fifth in wins with 53, has the 21st best ERA at 3.36, and 705 strikeouts, which ranks him in the top 10. So, big game pitcher, a guy who's really revived his career the past few years, and I think he's really going to bolster that rotation because you don't know how Mike Soroka's going to come back. This seems like an insurance plan to keep that as a strong rotation, even if he comes back strong.
Yeah, and for me, Ryan, you mentioned the 2017 World Series. This is a striking move because his main role in that 2017 World Series wasn't as a starter. We all remember him coming in out of the bullpen. And if you're a team like the Braves, you already have a good starting pitching staff. Max Fried, if Mike Soroka comes back, Ian Anderson looked like the real deal last year. You have a couple of options outside of Charlie Morton. They also brought in Drew Smyly, like we've already mentioned today. So come postseason time, they could see Charlie Morton go out to the bullpen because we've seen in the couple of past years, starting pitchers coming out of the bullpen have been extremely effective. We saw this year for the Los Angeles Dodgers, Julio Urias was one of their best pitchers, starting pitcher coming out of the bullpen. 2019, we saw Patrick Corbin come out of the bullpen a couple of times. He was pretty effective in that role. 2018, we saw Nathan Eovaldi. And 2017, we saw Charlie Morton, Brad Peacock, and even Colin McHugh doing that role. So it seems like this is something that the Braves could be aiming at there, because one thing we did see this year was a decline in fastball velocity out of Charlie Morton. And that is part of the reason, like you mentioned, Ryan, he saw an increase in his ERA and, not having a good of a season. I think that, the fastball velo going down had something to do with that. And it was a shortened season. Who knows how the offseason played in to Charlie Morton and how we got prepared for the season. It's something that we'll just never know with just about any player coming into the 2020 season. So if the Braves can find a way to either get that fastball velocity back up or use him as that start at the beginning of the season, then as as Soroka gets settled in, as Bryce Wilson and maybe even Kyle Wright gets settled in, then they could push him out to the bullpen where, like I've said, he's been effective before. They could see a fastball increase velocity there because now he's not having to throw 70, 80, 90 pitches. He's just coming in for 20 to maybe 30 pitches. So the Braves have a lot of routes to go with this signing, and I think that's why it can be an extremely effective signing because they know that the Mets are close up on their tail. They know that the Nationals, if they're healthy, are a good team. They know that the Marlins have a nice solid core, especially with that starting rotation. So they know that their championship window, it's open, but it could be closing shortly, and they believe that Charlie Morton can help them secure that title.
Yeah, and I think they realize that because, if you look at the National League East teams, I've been thinking about it a lot because obviously as a Mets fan, you have to see that all five teams in that division could realistically win it. I mean, and that's going to be what's so difficult going into it, that it seems like the team that's going to make the most signings this offseason is going to be the favorite. And the Braves are jumping out early. Obviously, teams like the Marlins and Nationals are going to need to get a few more players if they want to actually be in contention, but they're still going to be in the picture and they're not going to just lie down and die. I mean, I'm sure there'll be one team that surprises us all and goes under 500, but that's going to be, like I mentioned already, they're putting pressure on the NL East. They're making it known that not only with the Mets and Bauer, but with all these other teams, you're going to have to deal with an incredible pitching staff. You're going to have to bolster your offense. And if you don't do that, you're going to be left in the dust by this incredible rotation. And you've already got many great pitchers in that NL East. You look at the Mets, they've got a great rotation, even without that extra man that they don't have. They're going to be getting Syndergaard back probably for opening day. And you also look at the Nationals, who have Strasburg, Scherzer, and Corbin. Now they're not where they were once already, but they're still phenomenal pitchers. And
the Nationals have to get a second star,
yes,
to go along with Juan Soto, and they're looking to add a guy like Chris Bryant. So you got to watch out for that. But also, you have to look at the NL East is going to be a very competitive division. It's one of the better divisions in baseball. The best one's the NL West, with the battle of the Padres and the Dodgers at the top. Even though the Dodgers are going to come out on top, it's still going to be a close battle. But you also have to look at the NL East. They've got each team can make the playoffs and make a run. It's not like the AL Central when you're like, oh, you can take away the Royals and the the Tigers. And you're like, oh, they're not going to make the playoffs. There's not a team where you can just say, yeah, they're not going to make the playoffs. Used to be the Marlins, and look who just made the playoffs, the Marlins. So it's going to be a very competitive division. And now this begs the question, with how much money they put out in that $26 million on starting rotation, who do they look to add to replace Ozuna if he leaves?
That's a great point in that, there's so many different options. And like you said, and I mentioned it before, that's going to be difficult for them. And it makes it more likely. I mean, this is already jumping out and leading to so many different scenarios, but there's all of these different opportunities now for teams where they are going to have to make a move based on this, saying, okay, the Braves, I mean, this came out of not left field, but it just kind of came out a day or so ago. Okay, the Braves are really interested in Charlie Morton. I think it was John Morosi who tweeted it yesterday. Braves are interested in Morton, and boom, he's signed. And I mean, obviously, Morosi's been really up and down with his actual tweets, as you guys probably saw me, saying what, like he tweeted out that Mike Chernoff was in the lead for the Mets GM position, and then the Mets came out and said, no, that's wrong. So you don't know what to believe and what not to, but with that, he was right. And with Morton, I mean, it makes you say this is an older guy. And I think it's a really good point that this could be his last season, signing that 1-year deal. I mean, the Mets were looking to get him for maybe 2 or 3 years because they need that, but you never know. That security is not there. So I think this works out better for the Mets and other teams that were maybe looking to get him for 2 years, because I'm not sure if he can live up to that.
Yeah, he just wanted to be on a 1-year deal. And, if you're a team like the Mets who do need that long-term starting pitching, it still wouldn't have been a bad idea to get him on a 1-year deal. And then he can move elsewhere after the season. And then with the uncertainty of where baseball goes following the 2021 season, and 1-year deals are going to be very common this offseason. Now, I mean, the big names aren't going to sign 1-year deals because they're going to capitalize on the free agency market. But for guys like Charlie Morton, the 1-year deal made sense, and then he's gonna ride off into the sunset. So he's going to a team that he thinks he can win a championship with, get his second ring, because like we mentioned, the 2017 Houston Astros ring, a little bit of an asterisk, but now he wants to get another one with Atlanta, and he's going back to where he started. That's a pretty cool turnaround story, because the pitcher he was in Atlanta in their farm system, he's a different pitcher now.
Yeah, it's just kind of like all comes full circle, and that's where he's going to end his career probably. And he's going to a team that is a championship contender. This was a team that had a 3-1 lead on the Dodgers. It was 1 win away from the World Series. This is a very good team, very good offense, and now a very dominant pitching staff. Look at the depth that they also have. You could see Kyle Wright and Bryce Wilson actually become long relief out of the bullpen. That's insane. And these are guys that are young and are going to be pieces of the future. So there's a lot of different avenues that the Braves can go in with their pitching staff, but of course they have the offense and the firepower to back up that pitching staff. This is a team to definitely watch, and a very dangerous team in the NL and in the entire MLB.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at his stats here, he came off that World Series win in 2017, getting to pitch in that, and he actually had one of the better years of his career with a 3.13 ERA. He had the best win-loss record in baseball. Obviously, we all know that the win-loss record doesn't mean much, but a 1.162 WHIP, and then he came right back in 2019 with a phenomenal year as well. So making it to the World Series this year, maybe that is his push. He was coming off of 2 really great years, made it to the World Series after a bit of a down year, and you're going to be riding that momentum. Whether you're on the team or not that you made it to the World Series with and lost, you're still going to be fighting for it. He could go from that Rays team and go to the Pirates. He's still going to be fighting for that World Series. He was so close and was right there. And that might add that aspect. And the other thing here is that you've got a young, very young starting rotation staff with the Braves. This is a veteran pitcher, and this is honestly, whether Charlie Morton was doing so well or not, this is a smart move for the Braves without the baseball side of it, because he's going to train those young players to be their best, to get better. You've got Ian Anderson, who's coming off an incredible rookie season. And then you've also got, Max Fried and Soroka, all these younger pitchers that have things to learn. And this is the guy to learn them from.
Yeah, I think they were trying to get that veteran leadership last year when they brought in Cole Hamels and then both Felix Hernandez. Now, of course, Felix Hernandez opted out of the season given the coronavirus, and Cole Hamels had an injury, and he only made one appearance on the year, then re-injured it. So they didn't really get that from those guys. Now, I don't know if they were still in the locker room and still talking with those young pitchers that you just mentioned, but we know that Morton will be there, assuming that he, of course, is healthy, and that he'll give that to them as well. And I mean, Drew Smiley is also a veteran pitcher too, so that could be something else there. The Braves, they're realizing that, hey, if you don't get better, you get worse. There's other teams that are trying to catch up to them, so they're doing the best they can to continue to get better, and I applaud them for this.
Yeah, they know that they have the offense and the firepower to get to the World Series and to be that contender. They just need the pitching to back it up. And now getting Morton, they're really putting themselves up even further to where they're going to be a team that's going to be a favorite to make the NLCS and potentially have a chance to upset the Dodgers. This is a very good team, and adding Morton is really going to give them so many different dimensions for both their starting rotation and their bullpen, and that's really what they needed to do.
Yeah, before we sign off today, it's important because this is actually the first signing we had on our free agent tracker, because we didn't put all of them, but none of us were right on this one. All four of us were incorrectly predicted between you, me, Nick, and between me, Ryan, Nick, and Marco, because Dom obviously didn't have those predictions. And speaking of Marco, we have a guest appearance here, and Mr. Marco coming on in. What's up, Marco?
Rolling in with the shades.
I know.
How's that a guest appearance if I'm a regular guy?
A guest appearance at the end of the show. It was a surprise appearance, rather.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So what? Give us your take before we head on out, because we were gonna wrap up in a minute or so.
Okay, so my viewpoint of what happened with Charlie Morton, I think it's a great signing for the Braves. The only thing that I'm iffy about is specifically what kind of role they're going to give him. Like, I've been listening to you guys since you guys went live. I just got off my internship. So, he's labeled a starting pitcher, but we knew what he did in 2017 against the Dodgers, came out of the bullpen. So that's definitely, he's versatile. Like we saw this year with Julio Urias, and in 2018, like Dom said, with Nathan Eovaldi, they're versatile type of pitchers. And the thing about Charlie Morton is that he brings in so much playoff experience to the Braves, that he's going to be that kind of leader that the organization needs, because you have Freddie Freeman, and he's considerably the best first baseman in the game, but a lot of them have lacked that championship mentality as of right now. So that, I think, it's something that's going to benefit the Braves with Charlie Morton. The only thing that I'm worried about is that since he's in the NL, how maybe managers are going to try to force him out of the game in certain situations because of that the universal DH not being there. That's the only thing that I see wrong. I won't say it's wrong, but I do see managers trying to avoid Charlie Morton when they go deep into the playoffs. But it's a great signing experience. It was a lot of money, but hey, it's good for them. They're on the win now mode. Like Ryan said earlier, they were one win away from the World Series. They were just one win away, but they're on win now mode. And I think the question that I have now is what do they attack now after this signing? Do they try to get another bat, or they try to improve their bullpen? That's the thing that I'm thinking about, because Marcell Ozuna doesn't seem he's coming back. If he comes back, I wonder what they're going to pay him, and I wonder how it's going to work with him. But you got to look at the bats that are going to be in free agency, or they make it a trade for someone big. What if they are one of the big ones that hey, we know the Dodgers are interested in Nolan Arenado. You never know, the Braves out of nowhere are also interested in Nolan Arenado. You just don't know. So I think that's a big question. What do they attack now that they improve their starting rotation and improve their bullpen? Do they focus more on their bats, or they focus more on their bullpen now with this signing of Charlie Morton? That's an open question for you guys.
Well, I mean, that's a good question. We're gonna end it on that note. It was a great having you all. Thank you, Dom, for being a guest appearance here. Ryan, Marco, usuals on the podcast, getting their input in. And obviously, we're gonna have a lot more of these breaking news shows. Yes,
We're a show, not a podcast.
we can be both at the same time if we want to. But we're gonna have.
I just gotta give credit to Dom. He came out of the bullpen to come on and running the bases.
He did. He
Great
came
job,
out.
Dom.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Coming out of the bullpen is something I'm very used to. Was a bullpen pitcher in high school. Thank you guys for having me on. I enjoyed talking about Morton.
Yeah, and you never know. I'll extend the invite to you for the rest of these, because you never know. The likelihood of us getting all four of us on at the same time is very unlikely. So I want to get as many voices as I can. We can go up to 6 on here without our premium. So we'll get to chatting about more, and you never know. If we think it's big, we're going to cover it, and that's the way it's going to go. So thank you all for tuning on into the very first edition of Breaking News here from the Running the Bases podcast for today, we'll call it. But we appreciate you all coming out here. Charlie Morton signing with the Braves. It's a big deal. We hope to have some, maybe we'll have more before our next